ILTV Plus, your news from Israel and more 24/7. Start your free trial today. Subscribe at ILTV.tv and watch from any device. Moving on, a victory for environmentalists the world over. The Israeli Environmental Protection Ministry ruling to block oil tankers from anchoring off of the southern coast of Eilat in the Red Sea.
השגנו הישג סביבתי משמעותי בהגנה על הסביבה הימית. בלמנו בפועל כניסה של עשרות מכליות נפט לתוך מפרץ אילת, ובכך הגענו על המפרץ ועל שונית האלמוגים הכל כך ייחודית, בעלת ייחודיות עולמית. המשרד להגנת הסביבה הנהיג מדיניות של אפס תוספת סיכון, והיא קיבלה היום גיבוי משמעותי ולמעשה גוברת על כל שיקול אחר. למרות הלחצים, למרות ההתנגדויות, מדינת ישראל ומפרץ אילת לא יהפכו לגשר לנפט מזהם בעידן של משבר אקלים. נגן על הים, על החופים, על הסביבה ועל האדם.
However, the move could end with the total cancellation of the largest yet trade agreement between Israel and the United Arab Emirates since the signing of the Abraham Accords, the so-called Red Med pipeline designed to take Emirati oil to Europe via Israel. So what happens next? Joining to discuss is head of the Department of Environmental Studies at Tel Aviv University, Professor Colin Price. Professor, thank you so much for joining us. Now, what's your initial reaction to Minister Zandberg's announcement?
Thrilled. We've been waiting for this. I mean, we don't have many victories in the environmental movement in Israel, and this is one of our victories. That when we look at the possible risks of this pipeline going from Eilat to across to the Mediterranean, there's absolutely no benefit really to Israel except for earning a few taxes and for some big companies making a lot of money. This is not oil which is going to be used in Israel. This is oil simply to be sent to Europe from the UAE, and with very high risks of polluting the Gulf of Eilat, the water, the beaches, the coral reefs there, if there's an accident, God forbid. And we've seen these happen in the past. This is not, it's not something which doesn't happen. Oil spills and tankers having problems. And also the pipeline going across Israel from the south. We've also seen here in the past, there's been the same company, the pipelines have broken, and we've had pollution of the Negev desert. And again, then in the Mediterranean, you also have to have tankers coming in there. So all of this pollution produced from the oil is a very high risk to Israel. And luckily today we see that this has now been cancelled, this agreement between the UAE and this company.
So what really, is there any way to really save this deal? Could the companies involved rework and resubmit a plan that provides more safeguards? Or is any plan really too dangerous by your standards?
For us, the environmentalists, any plan is too dangerous. This is not really, it doesn't benefit Israel and the people of Israel really. We don't need this money from the taxes. We can find plenty of other things. And we're starting to collaborate with other countries in the neighborhood, especially Jordan, on renewable energies, which are much cleaner, not going to have such high risks as the oil pipeline. And even the UAE, where there's likely to be collaborations with them on other areas of solar energy, renewable energies, and that's the way we should be going, especially after Glasgow, after the COP26, where even I was there and I met people from UAE, the climate envoy from the UAE. People are already closing the door on fossil fuels. We've left the era of fossil fuels. It's going to take us some time to transition, but everyone's looking forward to the transition to renewable energies, mainly solar in our region. And the UAE and all our Arab neighbors are also going to be part of this transition. So I think we're at the end of the fossil fuel era. It's going to take maybe a decade or two to actually transition. But why should we build a new pipeline and have new transportation of fossil fuels and oil from across Israel when we're actually leaving this era? This is not the future anymore. This is looking in the past.
So does the cancellation of this deal have any opportunity? I mean, you just spoke of speaking with Emiratis at COP26 in Glasgow, et cetera. Does this have any chance to hurt the Abraham Accords or other potential agreements in the future between Israel and the Emirates, or are we really past the point of no return, so to speak, when it comes to endangering our peace treaties?
Yeah, I think this is just one deal which may fall through, and it's a dirty deal, literally. There's so many other things going on now with the UAE and the Gulf states there when it's with technologies. We have an agreement with our university, Tel Aviv University, on water research. So with renewable energies, water, startup companies in all different fields, there's huge amount of collaboration. So one deal may fall by the way, but there are going to be a lot more in the future. I don't think this is going to impact our relations at all.
All right, Professor, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Good evening.